I think family hubs will be the linchpin of all of the Start for Life services. And for me, what that means is they've got to be universal, open access, open long hours, and they've got to draw everybody in.
Welcome to Political Sandbox by Chamber, the place where politicians get to show us their ideas for improving the country. My name is Andrea King and I'm the Director of the Clinical Division for the Anna Freud Centre, which is the leading UK mental health charity for children and families' mental health improvement. It's evidence-based and draws on improving practice through evaluation, through early intervention when children and infants are very small. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by Dame Andrea Leadsom here today, who's the government's early years health advisor. Andrea, it's so lovely to see you today. Thank you for joining us.
Great to be here.
Talking to us about family hubs and the huge investment through the spending review into the Family Hubs initiative, which will reach 75 local authority areas in the country with a passion for early intervention and improving outcomes. Could you tell us a little bit about improving family hubs and what that design is there to do?
Yes, delighted to. Thanks for being here. I, about just over 20 years ago, first got involved with the Sure Starts, and I'm a big fan of Sure Starts, but I think that family hubs will build on that foundation and will specify the sorts of services that families need to promote their own babies' well-being. So the idea of family hubs is that they will provide support for families from conception all the way through to 19 or 25 where there are disabilities, but that in that perinatal period, in that start for life, the period from conception to the age of 2, that family hubs will become the go-to place where every parent and carer goes with their new infant, or indeed with their bump, ready to learn about being a parent, ready to get the support that they need, whether it's just a bit of advice about crying, sleeping, weaning, their own mental health or their partner's mental health, or whether it's much more profound support around mental health issues or how on earth does this breastfeeding work. And so, family hubs will be open access, so everyone with a baby or an infant can go there. Universal, so absolutely everyone, princes and paupers, all of us can go there. And open long hours, because that's what families need. If you've got a baby and a toddler, and the idea of you've got to get up, have a shower, get on the bus, take the toddler with you, get everyone changed and fed, that can be quite challenging. So if you're trying to make it for the 11 a.m. opening and there's only 2 hours, that is a problem. So they've got to be open long hours to meet the needs of parents and carers. So fundamentally, for me, the family hubs need to be all about the needs of the baby and the child.
Thank you. You've been a strong proponent for Start for Life, the best Start for Life. What's the interrelationship between Start for Life and family hubs in your mind?
Well, essentially, humans are unique in the animal kingdom in the extent of their underdevelopment at birth. If you think about it, no other animal can't do anything at all for itself until it's a year old. And human babies can't fend for themselves much before they're 2. So what that means is they are uniquely vulnerable in the period from conception to the age of 2. And the human baby's brain is literally still growing when it's born, all the way up till 2, 3, 4. And so its experiences, the baby's earliest experiences, will determine his or her lifelong reactions, his or her lifelong emotional as well as physical health. So that period from conception to the age of 2 is very, very vulnerable. And what we know is that every parent wants to be a good parent, but we also know that it's natural to you to be the same parent that your parents were to you. So if you were neglected, abused, ill-treated as a baby, you might struggle to be that good enough parent for your baby, but every parent wants to be a good parent. So the idea of a family hub is it can be a place where families can go to learn parenting capabilities to get support for mental health issues, for relationship issues, for domestic violence, for smoking cessation, drug and alcohol misuse problems at the very sharp end, but also at the universal end to actually learn about early brain development, about the importance of talking to your baby, hugging your baby, skin to skin contact, playing music, singing to your baby, all of those things that actually develop the baby's tiny, underdeveloped body and mind. And that is what family hubs will do, is to build capacity. And I think they will be the place that will enable transformation of our society.
Thank you. It's quite an ambitious vision, isn't it, to be able to meet the needs of very, very small children, so infants and babies, all the way through to 19-year-olds or 25-year-olds with special educational needs or with disabilities. How do you see that balance working in family hubs? How will those services come together?
Well, obviously, the definition of the family hub and the services that it provides is still being worked on by ministers, and that will be for the Department for Education to finally agree that alongside health ministers, and that work is underway now. But the early years review that I'm leading on is trying to be quite specific and helpful to local authority areas about what the expectation is of the Start for Life services. So in my review, we've defined that your universal Start for Life offer should include midwifery, health visiting, mental health support, breastfeeding support, and the statutory services of safeguarding and SEND. And that's for the period from conception to the age of 2. And it is my strong recommendation that all of those services should be available within the 4 walls of the family hub, physically, because that's what families really, really want, but also virtually, because we've heard from a lot of parents and carers that those services are incredibly valuable remotely. In particular, for example, dads have said they would rather get mental health support on a Zoom call than physically in the room. Some young women have said they'd prefer to get breastfeeding support remotely rather than face to face. And of course, in the middle of the night when the baby won't sleep or is crying, actually the family hub won't be open. So you actually might need digital or virtual or remote support. So actually making family hubs a physical offering and a virtual offering, and then of course vitally outreach, because if you are a parent with disabilities, or if you have a baby that's ill, or perhaps if you are in a traveller's site, or if you're very young and vulnerable, then actually you'll need people to come to you. So the family hub model will be different in each different local authority area, and how local authorities want to roll those out. Some may, for example, incorporate Sure Starts into their family hub model. Others may say, we'll do the Start for Life in this type of family hub, and we'll have a different type of family hub for older children and teenagers. And they will all perhaps have a common brand, but they might be delivered in separate buildings in perhaps a hub model and a spoke model. And those are all still work in progress. So I can't be explicit about how it'll work in every local area as yet.
We appreciate that, thank you. Part of the rationale behind family hubs is the ability to reach children, young people and families who may have found it really difficult to trust statutory services, may have found it very difficult to reach out and ask for help. How do you envisage family hubs working with those families to reach our diverse community and population?
Well, that is the beauty of having the best Start for Life services in the family hub, because if they become completely universal, and I have some very strong views. For example, if you had your first meeting with your midwife in a family hub where you get signed on for the support and the regular checks, for example, very often the other partner will want to come along to that to sort of find out what it's all about. So right from the very beginning, a family hub would then be non-stigmatising. Why? Because everybody goes there. If you were to add to that birth registration in family hub, so you literally go to the family hub, take your partner if you have one, other children if you have them. You'd go to the family hub to have a little celebration of the arrival of little whoever it is, and to register the birth. And then that also becomes a kind of showcase for what else is available in the family hub. So those would be the ways to really destigmatise family hubs, to make them welcoming places that everybody goes to. So it's in my mind, what we need is family hubs to be a bit like a GP surgery or a hospital A&E. Everybody goes there, therefore there's nothing weird about going there, there's nothing stigmatising about going there. So one of the big problems that I think Sure Starts have had is that they have become either a place where there's a particular group of friends who go there, or there's, no, that's only for people with particular problems, and therefore they become stigmatising. If you go there, you're that sort of a parent, or if you go there, you're a bad parent, or you're not allowed there because you've not been invited to go there. So the key thing for me to make family hubs accessible to all is to destigmatise them, make them welcoming to all. So, for example, having a cafe, having a sort of a drop-in and maybe a rhyme time and a play area, those are the sorts of things that will mean people will want to go in there and they'll find them welcoming, so they will use them.
Thank you. At Anna Freud, we talk a lot about the importance of trusting relationships between families, within family units, and also between professionals and the families and children and young people who need help. What's the role of trusting relationships? How might that feature in co-production of family hubs, for example?
So one of the Best Start for Life strong recommendations, one of the things we're taking to implementation now, is that every local area will establish a parent and carer panel for themselves. And the idea is that they will have perhaps, a dozen or a few more parents and carers, including seldom heard voices, including, regular sort of, two-parent families. And they will hear from those parents and carers what their experience was of the Start for Life offer and how they would like to see things improved. So what went well, what didn't go well, what they felt was missing, who they liked, who they didn't like. So very frank and honest feedback at a qualitative level of how does the Start for Life offer work. And your point about trusted relationships is absolutely vital here, because at the moment, midwives will ask you, how was the midwifery? How was the delivery? Did it work well? Health visitors will ask you, did you get the support you needed? But nobody is saying, how was the entire experience for you? Did you find you trusted the system? Did you find that people were empathetic towards you? Were they sensitive to your cultural or perhaps gender identity? And did they take account of your specific needs as well as the generalised needs? So the parent and carer panels, I think, will be really important. But so too will as we've discussed, the universality of family hubs, where you will be able to just go there and just hang out. But I do want to say again, there are some people, and very sadly, there are some new families who are in a very difficult position, very vulnerable, perhaps with addictions, perhaps with domestic violence, perhaps very lonely, perhaps very young, perhaps with disabilities. And for those people, trust is a very, very difficult issue. And so the outreach aspect to a family hub model is going to be very important, where services can come to you and can help you in your own home in a safe place. And perhaps over time, yes, you might be trusting enough to want to come to a family hub, but we don't want to say it's always going to be, in this place or online. There will be the outreach aspect to it as well, and that's absolutely critical. And of course, it's what health visitors very much focus on in the perinatal period, is going to the home to make sure that the home is well set up and is a safe space for new babies.
Thank you. Thinking about the context that family hubs will be launched within, thinking about the impact of COVID-19, the pandemic, on mental health, particularly for children, young people and families, thinking about its disproportionate impact for some in particular who have greater vulnerability. How might family hubs fit with that picture?
Well, COVID has been a unique and actually very mixed time for families with new babies. And of course, what we know is that a brand new baby only needs mum, dad, that's fine, a principal carer. And so for that baby, lockdown is potentially rather wonderful, because, mum, and if dad is there, then Dad is right there. So, and for many parents, we heard, well, it was great because, you know, my partner was holding the baby whilst I was having a shower, or whatever it might be. And so that was wonderful. On the other hand, the birth experience, very often, if there's another partner, they weren't allowed in to the hospital, at least not for anything other than just the delivery. And then they had to leave. And we've heard from parents where babies were in intensive care, where dads were not allowed to be there, and literally missed out on the first week or so of their baby's life because they weren't allowed back to the hospital. So that delivery was very difficult for some. And of course, for those with older toddlers, where they were stuck at home, they couldn't meet even granny and granddad, let alone other toddlers. So for those parents with that age group, that was very, very much more difficult. And then at this sort of the more tricky end, where you have couples who are in conflict, perhaps with several children of different age groups, perhaps in a block of flats with no outside space, there things were very, very difficult. And we know that there have been some increases in harm to very young babies and children, and it's been a very mixed picture, therefore. So the key thing in the feedback that we had in the Early Years Healthy Development Review Phase 1 was that parents and carers are desperate for a return to face-to-face services, for the camaraderie of being able to go to a mum and baby group, of being able to get granny and granddad round, of being able to get out and see friends and have a bit of social life, for mum and dad's mental health, or for mum's mental health if there's no partner. But at the same time, there's also some very serious catching up that's needed to rebuild the confidence in families where there have been real difficulties in lockdown.
So looking ahead at what family hubs could achieve, what would you describe the wanted impact, the impact that you'd love to see family hubs achieve?
Well, I think family hubs could be transformational for our society. They will be the delivery vehicle for really giving every baby the best start for life. So family hubs will be the physical space and the virtual space, and the family hub model will deliver the outreach that will be, therefore, the way in which families will get the support they need in that critical 1001 days and beyond. And so what every family said to us in the research phase for the early years review is that they start off, when they discover they're pregnant, not knowing what services they might need, and even if they did know what they need, not knowing what's available. So number one action point in our review is that every local area should publish their Start for Life offer. So you as a pregnant person will get from your GP, here's your set of Start for Life services, here's how to access them in the Family Hub, through the Family Hub virtual services, and through the Family Hub outreach. And so you will now be able to get the support you need, the midwifery, health visiting, mental health support, breastfeeding support, safeguarding, disability support, through that Family Hub network. And if it's universal and non-stigmatizing, it'll be somewhere that every family goes. And so those families who just are crying out, whether they have a PhD or whether they are a new vulnerable parent, single parent, they will actually be able to access the support that they've been crying out for.
Thank you. And you've talked a lot about the perinatal period, and it's so important, and early years. What about for the 19 to 25-year-olds with special educational needs or disabilities? What do you think the impact for family hubs would be for them?
I mean, again, that is something that is currently being worked up by the Department for Education with the Anna Freud Centre and with the Department for Health. They will be looking very carefully at the specific ongoing needs. I certainly remember as a backbencher, I think it was back in 2013, the Children and Families Bill that created the level of support for older, young people with particular disabilities and special educational needs, and the requirement for them to have ongoing support and not for it to come to an end at 16 as it did originally, and then at 18, and then at 21. So now the idea of the Family Hub taking you all the way through to 25 is designed to ensure that those with those particular specific needs will continue to get extra support until really their mid-20s, where they really are then hopefully able to carry on with supported living.
And this is a really welcome investment for children, young people and families, which will reach much of the country, with 75 local authority areas benefiting from this. What kind of support do you anticipate that local authorities might need with designing and implementing family hubs?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in this design phase, and it'll be for ministers to sign off on, but certainly my own view is that in selecting those 75 local areas, that's approximately half of all local authority areas in England, and each of them will be receiving transformation funding to create a family hub network out of what they already have. So every local authority area has children's centres, family centres, support networks and so on. So it won't be starting from scratch, starting afresh with a blank sheet of paper. It'll be transforming what they have into that family hub model. So different local authority areas, I'm sure, will do it differently. But for me, as I say, with my early years healthy development advisor hat on, I will be wanting to see that every family hub offers the Start for Life range of services, the universal services of midwifery, health visiting, mental health support, breastfeeding support, safeguarding and SEND services for that perinatal period. And then I suspect we'll see quite some variety between how different local authorities will interpret services and the method of delivery of those services for older children.
Thank you. And finally, Dame Andrea, just looking ahead and with the benefit of hindsight in 20 years' time, as you look back at family hubs, what would success have looked like from your perspective?
Well, as I say, I do believe this could transform our society for the better. So in 20 years' time, I would expect to see significant reductions in everything from poor self-esteem in young people and teenagers. I would expect to see a reduction in mental health challenges of young people. I would expect to see a reduction in self-harming by young people. I would expect to see a reduction in gang membership and in knife crime committed and perpetrated on young people. I would expect to see a reduction in children being taken into care and the sort of breakdown of family units. And then at the sort of closer to the perinatal period, I would expect to see a huge improvement in school readiness in young children and in the attunement between parents and their babies and the capacity of new families to be able to competently and confidently parent their own children. So I do think it will be transformational.
It's been a real privilege to talk to you today, Dame Andrea Leadsom. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.